Jake Morrison stood in the center of the huge chamber on Zarian Prime. The room was bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. Tall columns made of strange metal reached up to a ceiling that seemed to touch the clouds. Around him sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The Galaxy Council had ruled space for over 1,000 years. 4 great alien races controlled everything. The Vorth looked like giant lizards with thick scales and sharp teeth. The Zilani were made of living crystal that sparkled with inner light. The Nimari floated like clouds of colored gas inside special suits. The Kresh moved like a swarm of giant insects with clicking sounds that hurt human ears. Jake had been Earth's best diplomat for 20 years. He had helped make peace between warring countries. He had stopped 3 wars before they started. Now he stood before these alien masters to ask for something no human had ever requested before. He wanted Earth to become a full member of the Galaxy Council. The human race had been exploring space for 50 years. They had built cities on 12 different worlds. They had made friends with 3 alien races that the Council had ignored. Human ships could travel faster than light. Human farmers could grow food on dead planets. Human doctors could cure diseases that had killed millions. But the Galaxy Council still treated humans like children. Earth could only trade for basic supplies. Human ships needed special permits to visit other worlds. Human colonies had to pay huge taxes to the Council. Jake was here to change all of that. He looked up at Council Speaker Vorth Ka. The giant reptile sat on a throne made of black stone. Scars covered his thick hide from battles fought long ago. His yellow eyes stared down at Jake with open hatred. The other council members whispered among themselves in languages that sounded like music, static, and grinding metal. Jake cleared his throat and began to speak. His voice echoed in the massive chamber. Honored members of the Galaxy Council, I come before you today representing all of humanity. For 50 years, we have proven ourselves worthy of your respect. We have explored new worlds. We have brought life to dead planets. We have made peace with our neighbors. The Zilani representative, a creature that looked like a walking diamond, made a sound like breaking glass. Jake knew this meant disagreement. He continued anyway. Humans have invented new ways to travel between stars. Our ships are faster and use less fuel than yours. We have created medicines that work on dozens of different alien species. We have shared our knowledge freely with anyone who asked. We have never started a war with another spacefaring race. Council Speaker Vorth Ka leaned forward on his throne. When he spoke, his voice was like rocks grinding together. Human, you speak of achievements, but we see only a young race that breeds too fast and spreads like a disease. Your people fight wars on their homeworld. Your colonies consume resources that belong to older, wiser races. Jake felt sweat on his forehead, but he did not back down. Every race has growing pains. The Vorth Empire fought civil wars for 300 years before joining the Council. The Kresh hives destroyed 2 of their own worlds with chemical weapons. Even the peaceful Zilani wiped out 6 billion of their own people during the Crystal Wars. An angry buzzing sound filled the chamber. The Kresh did not like being reminded of their violent past. Their compound eyes glowed red with rage. The Nimari representative floated higher in the air, which Jake knew was a sign of nervousness. The difference, Vorth Ka continued, is that we learned from our mistakes. We evolved beyond our primitive nature. Humans still act like animals. They still fight. They still destroy. They still breed without control. Jake stepped forward. That is exactly why you should accept us into the Council. You can help guide us. You can teach us to be better. Isn't that what the Galaxy Council is supposed to do? Bring peace and order to the galaxy? The chamber fell silent. For a moment, Jake thought he might have gotten through to them. Then Vorth Ka began to laugh. It was a horrible sound, like stones falling down a mountain. The other council members joined in with their own alien versions of laughter. Guide you? Vorth Ka stood up from his throne. He was 3 times taller than Jake and covered in muscle. Humans cannot be guided. You are a plague that must be contained. You spread across the galaxy like a virus, consuming everything in your soul. Path. The council speaker raised his clawed hand. You came here asking for membership. Instead, you will receive a lesson. The Galaxy Council does not tolerate disrespect from primitive species. You will serve as an example to any other young race that thinks it can demand equality with its betters. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Something was very wrong. The other council members were moving away from him. The Zilani started to glow brighter. The air around the Nimari began to shimmer with heat. The Kresh spread their wings and made clicking sounds that meant danger. "What are you doing?" Jake asked. He tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. The chamber doors had sealed shut. "We are teaching the galaxy a lesson," Vorthka said. "No inferior race will ever again dare to demand equality with the Galaxy Council." Beams of energy shot out from the alien representatives. Crystal light from the Zilani, burning gas from the Nimari, acid spray from the Kresh, lightning from Vorthka himself. All of it focused on Jake Morrison. The human diplomat screamed as the energy tore into his body. His clothes caught fire. His skin began to burn. But the aliens were careful. They did not kill him quickly. They wanted him to suffer. They wanted his death to be slow and painful. Jake's screams echoed through the chamber as his body was slowly destroyed. The aliens watched with satisfaction. They were broadcasting his death across the galaxy. Every human colony would see their ambassador die. Every alien race would understand what happened to those who challenged the Galaxy Council. It took 5 minutes for Jake Morrison to die. 5 minutes of agony that would change the course of galactic history. On Earth, President Lisa Carter sat in the Oval Office with her advisors. They watched the broadcast in horror. General Paul Rodriguez clenched his fists as he saw the human diplomat burn. Secretary of Defense Karen White covered her mouth to keep from being sick. When it was over, the chamber fell silent. Lisa Carter stood up slowly. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "Gentlemen, ladies, we are at war." The Galaxy Council had made their biggest mistake. They thought they were teaching humanity a lesson about knowing their place. Instead, they had just awakened a sleeping giant. The human race would never forget Jake Morrison, and they would never forgive his killers. 3 months had passed since Jake Morrison died screaming in the Galaxy Council chambers. Earth was no longer the same peaceful world it had been before. Every city buzzed with activity. Every factory worked day and night. Every person on the planet knew they were preparing for the biggest war in human history. President Lisa Carter stood before the United Earth Assembly. Representatives from every nation sat in the Great Hall. Their faces were grim as she began to speak. "The Galaxy Council chose murder over diplomacy. They burned our ambassador alive and broadcast his death across the galaxy. They wanted to show the universe that humans are weak and worthless. They made a terrible mistake." The assembly erupted in cheers and applause. Lisa raised her hand for silence. "We will show them what humans are truly capable of. We will make them regret the day they decided to make enemies of Earth." Admiral Kate Sullivan walked through the shipyards of Luna. The moon had been turned into a giant weapons factory. Massive construction bays stretched as far as the eye could see. Inside each bay, workers built warships designed for one purpose: destroying the Galaxy Council. "How many ships will be ready for the first wave?" Lisa asked as she toured the facility. 200 battle cruisers, 500 destroyers, and 1,000 fighters, Admiral Sullivan replied. "Every civilian transport ship is being converted into a troop carrier or supply vessel. We are also building something special." She led Lisa to a sealed hangar. Inside was the largest warship ever built by humans. It was 3 miles long and bristled with weapons. "We call it the Jake Morrison. It will be the flagship of our revenge fleet." Dr. Sam Collins worked in his laboratory deep under the mountains of Colorado. His team had been studying alien biology for months. They knew exactly how to hurt the Galaxy Council species. "The Vorth have thick scales, but they conduct electricity very well," he explained to his assistants. "One lightning weapon can kill a dozen of them. The Zilani are made of crystal. Sound waves at the right frequency will shatter them like glass." He pointed to another weapon on the table. The Kresh use their wings to fly and their antennae to communicate. This electromagnetic pulse will cripple both, and the Namari need their containment suits to survive. Puncture the suit and they die in seconds. His weapons were not just designed to kill. They were designed to kill in the most effective way possible. Every shot would count. Every human soldier would have the tools needed to destroy their alien enemies. Commander Lisa Hayes trained the first group of human space marines. These soldiers would fight in zero-gravity and alien atmospheres. They would storm enemy ships and capture enemy bases. They called themselves the Morrison Battalion, in honor of their murdered ambassador. "Remember what you saw in that broadcast," Lisa told her troops. "Remember how they laughed while our diplomat burned. Remember that they think we are weak and primitive. We are going to show them how wrong they are." The soldiers practiced fighting in spacesuits. They learned to use jetpacks to move in zero gravity. They trained with the new alien-killing weapons Dr. Collins had created. Every day they got better. Every day they got angrier. Intelligence Director Carl Bennett sat in his office reading reports from across the galaxy. His spies had been busy since Jake Morrison's death. They had learned many secrets about the Galaxy Council. "The younger alien races hate the Council," he told President Carter during their weekly meeting. "They are forced to pay huge taxes and follow stupid laws. Many of them want to rebel but are too afraid. If we can prove that the Council can be beaten, they might join us." Carl had also discovered something important about the Council's military. They have not fought a real war in 300 years. Their tactics are old and slow. They expect enemies to line up and fight like gentlemen. They have never faced an enemy like us. His agents had mapped every military base in Council space. They knew where the enemy kept their weapons and where their leaders lived. When the war began, humans would know exactly where to strike. The galaxy watched nervously as human ships began appearing near Council borders. These were not the trading vessels and colony ships they were used to seeing. These were warships painted black and covered with weapons. Human patrol fleets sent a clear message: "We are coming." On Vorth Prime, Council Speaker Vorth Ka met with his military commanders. "The humans are mobilizing their primitive fleet," he said with contempt. "They think they can threaten us with their tiny ships and crude weapons." General Vorth Mal, the greatest military leader of the Vorth Empire, was not so sure. "Sir, our intelligence reports say they have built over 1,000 warships in just 3 months. No race has ever mobilized so quickly." "Numbers mean nothing without experience," Vorth Ka replied. "We have ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. These humans are children playing with toys. One battle will send them running back to their little blue world." But other council members were worried. The Zalani had tried to scan human ship designs with their crystal sensors. The scans failed. Human technology was different from anything they had seen before. The Namari reported that human ships moved in ways that made no sense. The Kresh complained that human communications were impossible to intercept. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Jake Morrison as it left Earth orbit. Behind her flew the largest war fleet in human history. Soldiers, pilots, and sailors who had trained for months were finally going to war. They carried the anger of an entire species. They carried the memory of Jake Morrison. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for the first Council world on their target list. The Galaxy Council had wanted to teach humanity a lesson about knowing their place. Instead, they had awakened something they did not understand. They had turned a peaceful species into an army of vengeance. The war for the galaxy was about to begin, and the humans were ready to show their enemies what happened when you murdered their diplomats and laughed about it. The Council thought they were dealing with primitive savages. They would soon learn the truth about human nature. Earth remembered Jake Morrison. Earth would never forget, and Earth would never forgive. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Jake Morrison as her fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 17 different star systems appeared on the tactical display. Each system had Galaxy Council military bases. Each system was about to learn what happened when you murdered a human diplomat. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan," she spoke into the communication system. "Operation Righteous Fury begins now. Remember Jake Morrison. Make them pay." The largest human war fleet in history split into 17 attack groups. Each group had been trained for one specific target. They knew every detail about the enemy, bases they were about to destroy. They had studied the layouts for months. They knew where the weapons were stored and where the commanders lived. Captain Rick Thompson led his fighter squadron through the asteroid field around Vorth Prime. The huge lizard aliens had built their main military base inside the largest asteroid. They thought the rocks would protect them from attack. They were wrong. Rick's fighters moved like hunting wolves through the floating rocks. Their engines were quiet. Their hulls were painted black. The Vorth sensors could not detect them until it was too late. "Target the command center first," Rick told his pilots. "Then hit the weapon storage areas." The human fighters struck like lightning. Missiles slammed into the asteroid base before the Vorth could react. Explosions tore through the rock. Emergency lights flashed as the base lost power. Vorth soldiers ran through the corridors, but there was nowhere to hide. 3 massive Vorth battleships tried to launch from the base. Rick's squadron was waiting for them. The human fighters swarmed around the big ships like angry bees. Their weapons were designed to punch through Vorth armor. The battleships exploded one by one, lighting up the asteroid field with fire. "Base destroyed," Rick reported to Admiral Sullivan. 3 capital ships eliminated, no human losses. On Zalani Prime, Colonel Mary Johnson watched her orbital bombardment ships take their positions. The crystal aliens lived in huge cities that sparkled like jewels. Their entire civilization was connected by crystal communication networks. Mary's job was to break those networks without killing civilians. "Remember, we target only the communication crystals," she told her gunners. "These weapons are designed to shatter their network nodes. The Zalani will be confused and helpless, but they will live." The bombardment began at exactly noon. Beams of sonic energy struck the crystal networks that connected every Zalani city. The crystals shattered like glass windows hit by rocks. The beautiful singing sounds that the Zalani used to talk to each other went silent. Down on the planet, millions of crystal beings suddenly found themselves alone. They had been connected to each other their whole lives. Now they could not share thoughts or coordinate their actions. Zalani military ships floated helplessly in space as their crews forgot how to work together. "Zalani fleet neutralized," Mary reported. "Their communication network is destroyed. They cannot fight as a group anymore." The Kresh Hives had the largest military fleet in the Galaxy Council. Their ships moved in perfect formation like flocks of giant metal birds. "Lieutenant, Commander Steve Adams had discovered something important about these insect aliens during his training. Human engines produced electromagnetic interference that scrambled Kresh coordination signals. Steve led his attack group straight at the center of the Kresh fleet. The alien ships tried to maintain their formation, but the human engines created invisible waves of interference. The Kresh pilots became confused. They could not hear the commands from their hive queens. Their perfect formation fell apart. "It's working," Steve told his gunners. "They're flying into each other. Target the command ships first, then pick off the stragglers." The Kresh fleet turned into chaos. Ships crashed into each other as their pilots lost coordination. Human gunners picked them off one by one. The insects that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries were suddenly helpless against human technology. "Kresh, main fleet destroyed," Steve reported. "Survivors are retreating in disorder. The Nimari Federation tried to escape when they saw what was happening to their allies. Their gas-filled ships were fast, but human ships were faster. Captain Danny Foster led the pursuit through hyperspace. His job was to make sure none of the cloud aliens escaped to warn other council forces. They're trying to reach the Nimari home system," Danny's navigator reported. "Should we let them go?" "No," Danny replied. "They helped murder Jake Morrison. They all pay the price." The human ships caught up with the fleeing Nimari vessels near a red giant star. The gas aliens had powerful shields, but human weapons had been designed specifically to puncture their containment suits. One hit was all it took to kill a Nimari. "Nimari fleet eliminated," Danny reported. None escaped. Within 72 hours, the Galaxy Council had lost nearly half of their military power. Bases that had stood for centuries were burning wreckage. Fleets that had ruled space for generations were destroyed. The aliens who had laughed while Jake Morrison burned were no longer laughing. Council Speaker Vorthka broadcast an emergency message from his palace on Vorth Prime. His voice shook with rage and fear. Humans, you have made a terrible mistake. The Galaxy Council offers to negotiate. The diplomat's death was a regrettable misunderstanding. We can discuss terms for peace. Admiral Sullivan's response was broadcast across every human ship and colony. Her voice was cold as ice. You had your chance for diplomacy. Ambassador Morrison came in peace and you burned him alive. Now you face the consequences. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. There will only be justice. Human forces established forward bases in the captured systems. They controlled the main hyperspace routes that connected Council worlds. For the first time in galactic history, the dominant species found themselves cut off from each other. On Earth, President Lisa Carter met with her War Council. The reports from all 17 attack groups were the same: complete victory with minimal losses. Phase 1 is complete, she announced. The Galaxy Council's military power is broken. Now, we move to Phase 2. The aliens who had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years were learning a hard lesson. Humans were not the primitive savages they had believed. They were something far more dangerous. They were a species that remembered their friends and never forgave their enemies. The war was just beginning and humanity was winning. 2 years had passed since the first human attack on Galaxy Council forces. The war had grown bigger and more violent than anyone expected. Both sides had learned to hate each other with a passion that burned like stars. The Galaxy Council had formed the Purification Alliance. Every council species agreed that humans were a disease that had to be cut out of the galaxy. They stopped targeting only military bases. Now they attacked human colonies where families lived and children played. The attack on New Colorado changed everything. The farming world had 3 million human settlers. They grew food that fed dozens of human colonies. Most of the people there had never even seen a weapon. Council Speaker Vorthka led the attack himself. His fleet surrounded the planet and began bombardment from orbit. They did not try to capture the world. They did not demand surrender. They simply began killing everyone on the surface. The bombardment lasted for 6 hours. Energy beams turned cities into burning craters. Farms became fields of ash. Mountains melted under the alien weapons. When it was over, New Colorado was a dead world. 200,000 humans had died, including 50,000 children. President Lisa Carter watched the footage in the White House Situation Room. The images showed burned homes, melted playgrounds, and mass graves hastily dug by the few survivors. General Paul Rodriguez sat beside her, his hands clenched into fists. They killed children, Lisa said quietly. They murdered babies in their beds. She turned to General Rodriguez. Remove all restrictions on military operations. The Galaxy Council wants total war. They will get it. Captain Danny Foster received his new orders while orbiting Vorth Prime. He was to lead the assault on the reptilian homeworld. This time, there would be no mercy for civilians. The Council had broken the rules of war. Humans would do the same. Target, the capital city, Danny told his bombardment crews. Level everything within 50 miles of the government center. I want Vorthka to watch his world burn the way we watched New Colorado die. The human fleet opened fire on Vorth Prime. Kinetic bombardment weapons dropped chunks of metal from orbit. Each piece hit the ground with the force of a nuclear weapon. The reptilian capital city disappeared under a rain of destruction that lasted 3 days. Council Speaker Vorthka died in his palace. The building collapsed on top of him as human weapons turned the stone walls into dust. His last message was a scream of rage broadcast across the galaxy. Then the transmission went silent forever. Dr. Sam Collins had been working on humanity's most terrible weapon. He called it the Genesis bomb. The device did not destroy planets like a normal weapon. Instead, it changed the air itself into poison that only affected specific alien species. The bomb reads alien DNA, he explained to President Carter. It releases chemicals that are harmless to humans, but deadly to our enemies. We can make entire worlds uninhabitable for Council species while keeping them safe for human settlement. The first Genesis bomb was dropped on 3 Zilani worlds. The crystal beings had to evacuate millions of their people as their home atmospheres became toxic. They could not breathe their own air anymore. Their beautiful crystal cities stood empty, while human ships patrolled overhead. Commander Lisa Hayes intercepted a Nimari diplomatic vessel trying to reach neutral space. The gas aliens claimed they wanted to broker peace between humans and the Council. They said they were tired of war and wanted to find a solution that worked for everyone. Lisa boarded their ship with a team of Marines. What she found in the Nimari, computers changed everything. The cloud aliens had been supplying weapons to Council forces while publicly claiming to be neutral. They had provided the energy weapons used to kill civilians on New Colorado. "Broadcast this across the galaxy," Lisa told her communications officer. She uploaded the Nimari secret files to every news network in known space. The evidence was clear. The Nimari had been lying about their neutrality while helping to murder human families. The revelation destroyed the Nimari Federation's credibility. Dozens of neutral alien species stopped trusting them. Some even joined the Human Alliance, bringing their own fleets and resources to the war against the Council. Intelligence Director Carl Bennett had created something called the Morrison Protocol. This was a network of human agents and alien allies, dedicated to hunting down everyone responsible for Jake Morrison's death. They had a list of names. They worked through that list one by one. Council members who had participated in the ambassador's execution began dying in mysterious ways. Some were poisoned at state dinners. Others died in shuttle accidents that were not really accidents. A few simply disappeared, never to be seen again. The aliens learned to fear human agents. No security was good enough. No hiding place was safe enough. The humans remembered every face that had watched Jake Morrison burn. They were patient. They were thorough. They never gave up. By the war's second anniversary, human forces controlled or had destroyed 67 star systems. The mighty Galaxy Council had been reduced to a handful of core worlds. Their fleets were broken. Their colonies were abandoned. Their leaders were dead or in hiding. Dozens of alien species that had been oppressed by the Council for centuries joined humanity's growing alliance. They brought their own ships and soldiers to the fight. The war that had started as humans versus the Galaxy Council had become a galactic revolution. The Kresh hives tried to make a last stand in their home system. Queen Kresh Prime sent a message offering to surrender if humans would spare her people. She claimed the Kresh had only followed Council orders when they helped kill Jake Morrison. Admiral Kate Sullivan's response was broadcast to every ship in the human fleet. "You had a choice when our ambassador asked for peace. You chose murder. You had a choice when we offered you surrender terms. You chose to keep fighting. Now you have no choices left." The assault on the Kresh home system lasted 2 weeks. Human forces used every weapon they had developed during the war. When it was over, the insect aliens that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries were extinct. Their hive worlds were empty tombs drifting in space. The Galaxy Council that had ruled space for 1,000 years was dying. The aliens who had laughed while Jake Morrison burned were learning what human justice looked like, and the war was not over yet. The war ended where it began. Zerion Prime, the galactic capital where Jake Morrison had been murdered, now faced the largest fleet ever assembled. Admiral Kate Sullivan commanded 800 human warships and twice as many vessels from alien species that had joined the Human Alliance. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. The remaining Galaxy Council forces had retreated to their last stronghold. What was left of the Vorth Empire, the Zilani Collective, and the Nimari Federation had gathered their surviving ships around Zerion Prime. They knew this was their final chance to stop the human advance. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan," she broadcast to her massive fleet. "Today we finish what they started. Today we make them pay for every human life they took. Today we get justice for Jake Morrison." The battle lasted 6 days. Human forces used every lesson they had learned during 3 years of war. They struck in coordinated waves that the enemy could not predict or counter. They used weapons designed specifically to kill each alien species. They showed no mercy and asked for none. Captain Rick Thompson led fighter squadrons through the debris fields left by destroyed Council ships. His pilots had become experts at space combat. They moved like a pack of wolves, hunting down enemy vessels that tried to escape. "Remember New Colorado?" Rick told his pilots as they closed in on a fourth battleship. "Remember all the children they murdered?" The human fighters swarmed the alien ship. Their weapons tore through the reptilian armor like paper. The battleship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the space around Zerion Prime. Commander Lisa Hayes led the assault on the planet's surface. Her Marines stormed the same council chambers where Jake Morrison had died. They fought through corridors filled with desperate alien defenders. Every step forward was paid for in blood. "The council chamber is just ahead," Lisa told her troops. "The place where they burned our ambassador alive. Time to return the favor." The Marines broke through the final defense line. The great chamber where the Galaxy Council had ruled for 1,000 years was now a battlefield. Human soldiers fought, alien guards among the same columns where Jake Morrison had made his final speech. The surviving council members had barricaded themselves behind the speaker's throne. There were only 5 of them left. The rest had died during the war or been eliminated by Carl Bennett's agents. They looked nothing like the proud rulers who had laughed while a human diplomat burned. Captain Danny Foster entered the chamber with a squad of Marines. He looked at the cowering aliens and felt no pity. These creatures had started a war that killed millions of beings across the galaxy. They had murdered children and destroyed entire worlds. "By order of the Terran Commonwealth, you are under arrest for genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sapient life," Danny announced. The trial was held in the same chamber where Jake Morrison had died. President Lisa Carter, now called Director Carter, presided over the proceedings. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in judgment. The entire galaxy watched as the council members faced justice. The evidence was overwhelming. Video recordings showed them ordering attacks on civilian populations. Communications intercepts proved they had planned to exterminate the human race. Survivor testimony described atrocities committed on dozens of worlds. The verdict was unanimous: guilty on all charges. Director Carter stood to announce the sentence. "You burned Ambassador Morrison alive for asking for peace. You murdered millions of innocent beings because you believed yourselves superior to all other life. You showed no mercy to children, no compassion for the helpless, no respect for the laws of civilized warfare." She paused and looked directly at each surviving council member. "You will receive the same justice you gave to Jake Morrison. You will die by fire and the galaxy will watch." The execution was broadcast across known space. The surviving council members were burned alive in the same chamber where they had murdered the human diplomat. Their screams echoed through the halls where they had once ruled with absolute power. When it was over, Director Carter addressed the galaxy from the rebuilt council chambers. "The old order is dead. The Galaxy Council that ruled through fear and oppression is finished. In its place, we established the Terran Commonwealth, a voluntary alliance of free species. The Commonwealth was different from the old Council. Every member species had an equal vote regardless of their military power or technological level. There were no superior races and no inferior ones. There was only cooperation, mutual respect, and shared prosperity." Director Carter announced the Morrison Doctrine, the new law that would govern the galaxy. Any species that commits genocide or crimes against sapient life will face the full military might of the Commonwealth. We will not allow another Jake Morrison to die while tyrants laugh. 5 years after Jake Morrison's death, a memorial statue stood in the Commonwealth Assembly Chamber. It showed the murdered ambassador reaching out his hand in friendship. The inscription read, "He came in peace, he died in flames, and his death lit the fire that freed the galaxy." Admiral Sullivan, now Supreme Commonwealth Commander, visited the memorial often. She thought about the cost of victory. Humanity had given up its innocence to gain something more valuable, the respect and fear of an entire galaxy. The Morrison Military Academy graduated its first class of officers. Young humans and aliens from dozens of species took an oath together. They swore to protect the Commonwealth, and remember the diplomat whose death had changed galactic history. The final scene showed Earth as seen from space. The blue world that had once been dismissed as primitive now stood at the center of galactic civilization. Human ships patrolled trade routes that connected thousands of worlds. Human diplomats negotiated treaties that kept the peace. But everyone remembered the lesson Jake Morrison's death had taught. Humans preferred peace, but they were very good at war. They made loyal friends and implacable enemies. They never forgot a kindness, and they never forgave a betrayal. The Galaxy Council had learned too late what happened when you murdered a human diplomat, and laughed about it. They had awakened something they could not control or defeat. They had turned humanity from peaceful explorers into galactic conquerors. The galaxy would never make that mistake again.